Hello everyone, welcome to the Fire Artisan channel. I'm Drew. We're going to do something a little bit different today. Lately, I've been a little bit focused on just moving up the ranks. I would love to get to Mythic. I've heard a lot of people say that it's easier for these channels to get a little bit more attention if your rank is higher. I guess people take you a little bit more seriously, which is silly on the one hand because they're being in Mythic or Diamond or any other tier, it doesn't necessarily map onto your skill as a player, or or whether you'd be fun to watch, or whether you're a good deck builder or anything like that. So, in my experience, the people who are in Mythic or the people who are high in Mythic are just kind of experienced grinders, who are just spending a lot of time playing with the same decks that they're very familiar with, sort of over and over again for hours and hours. And it really is a grind, especially if you're trying to go all the way to the top. So if you can't put that much time in, then don't worry about it. That's totally fine. So, but I thought I would do this video about just how to rank up. You can see my current rank is Diamond Tier 1, and as you can see, I'm one best of 3 victory away from the Mythic rank. So I've gotten into Mythic a number of times before. Whether or not I get into it on any given season usually just depends on the extent to which I'm trying to get into it. So I'm just going to share with you some tips on how to get there if you're really trying to get there, basically, and what I think it takes. So, and meanwhile, we're going to be playing this match to see if I make it in. So I thought this would kind of be a fun idea for a video. So let's jump in. You know what? I'll show you what I'm playing with, obviously, that I'm sure you want to see that. So this is kind of tip 1, I guess, for ranking up. Don't play with... Now, I'm not usually someone who likes to say this because fans of the channel know that I like to play with my own brews. I like to build decks, especially off meta decks, and take them into the ranked queue and see how it goes. But if you're really trying to rank up and that's all you care about, my recommendation is that you net deck. You find decks online that have been piloted successfully, that have some kind of reputation, tournament reputation. So in this case, I chose Simic Ramp. This isn't by any means the most popular deck. I think decks like Temur Reclamation and Bant Ramp, even Sultai Ramp potentially, are more popular decks in the format right now. But Simic Ramp is an incredibly powerful and still popular deck. Many people are taking it to high-level tournaments, and it's been seeing great results. This is a deck list that Nicole Callahan had. I don't know who she is, but she had a strong finish in one of the Untapped Red Bull qualifier events with this deck. I think she went 6-1 or 7-1, something like that. Just a really strong performance. And I love Simic Ramp. So that's almost tip 2, right? So tip 1 is net deck. Find a deck online that looks great, that has had some successful results. I generally go to MTG Goldfish to find if I'm looking to net deck. And even if you're pretty set on building your own deck, or taking a certain archetype like Sultai Ramp, for example, and just sort of brewing your own version of that, I would still recommend just looking at what people are playing with, just so you get a sense of what makes that archetype powerful and what key cards you'll need for that archetype, right? So like if I know I want to play Simic Ramp, but I want to build my own version of the deck, then one thing I'll do is I'll just go online and look at all kinds of different versions of Simic Ramp that people are playing with, right? Like maybe some people have more of a flash theme going on, so they might be playing with 4 Shark Typhoons instead of 2. Maybe some people will be playing with 4 copies of Mystical Dispute. Maybe some people will be playing with Ops. Some people might be playing with 4 copies of a card like Arboreal Grazer, just to be sure they get on the board faster than some of their ramp opponents, and or just because this card is pretty good against aggressive decks, slows them down a lot. You know, some decks will play the full 4 copies of Aether Gust right now just because they think that's meta appropriate, and some people will be playing 2 or even 0. So, and same thing with Hydroid Krasis. Like, do you want 4 copies? Do you want 2 copies? Everyone knows you want to play some copies, but how many is a question. It's the same with Ugin. 3 copies of Uro seems to be very standard. Now, there is another direction you can go with Simic Ramp, and this is a deck that I'm a huge fan of. I've played it before on the channel. You can play Simic Elementals ramp deck with Risen Reef, Leafkin Druid, and Cavalier of Thorns. That is also a very powerful deck. That version tends to be better against creature decks than this version is, but this version is usually... this version, I think, is just going to do better in the metagame right now because it's playing with Ugin and Shark Typhoon. It just has access to more of these powerful non-creature spells. And we have some creatures that can come out of the sideboard that I'll show you in a minute. So, yeah. So, number 1, net deck, right? Tip number 2 is choose a deck that really resonates with you, okay? More so than what you think is the best deck in the format. So I'll show you what I mean. So if you're just looking at tournament results, right, and you see that some version of Temur Reclamation, you know, went like 8-0, and so you think, oh, I've got to play Temur Reclamation if I want to make it into Mythic, or you know, you're on the road to Mythic, right? You're Diamond Tier 1 or Platinum Tier 3 or something like that. And almost everyone you playing is playing Temur Reclamation. So you think, I've got to play Temur Reclamation. That's the most viable deck right now. I would say that's great if you like Temur Reclamation, if you're comfortable with it, if it resonates with you. But if you're kind of a red mage at heart, right, or you're a black mage, or you are, you know, or you just feel like you have this really strong Dimir control deck that you believe in, or you found this great Dimir control list and you've been having some success with it, I would say stick with your feeling. You know what I mean? You want to play a deck that you like to play, that you really like, that you sort of believe in. Even if you kind of know objectively in a distant way, like Sultai Ramp is really strong right now. If you don't like the cards, you know what I mean? If you don't like Casualties of War, if you don't want to play like that, if you don't like those discard spells, if you're not really a black mage, then I would say don't gravitate toward those decks. You want to play decks that you believe in, that you're going to be comfortable with. And that's sort of another thing, sort of besides your feeling about the deck, like how much you're attracted to it. You also just want to consider what type of player you are and what your skill set is, right? Are you generally a player who's most comfortable playing aggressive strategies? Are you more of a control player? In general, you want to avoid trying to rank up with a deck that is kind of anti your skill set, right? It's not gonna go well for a couple of reasons. One reason is that you're probably just not gonna enjoy playing the deck as much. You're probably not gonna know as much about how to sideboard, and you're probably also just gonna make mistakes that someone who's more familiar with that strategy wouldn't make, and that can really be the difference. Really small mistakes are honestly the difference between Platinum, Diamond, Mythic, and beyond. So yeah, so that comes back to me playing this deck. Like, the reason I'm playing Simic Ramp is because Simic, I love those colors. I think really just almost all the best cards in the format are in blue and green. So we have access to just so much power. We are the deck that generally gets to Ugin, the Spear Dragon, faster than any other deck. So, and we can, you know, like, cast him successfully. We have lots of access to counter magic. We have creatures to bring in. Some of the best creatures in the format, obviously, are green, which is pretty much always the case. So that's why I think Simic was well positioned. And I just love these colors. Like, Nissa, Who Shakes the World, is probably my favorite card in the whole format. I feel very comfortable playing with her. I have a lot of experience with her. So that's why I feel comfortable playing with this deck. But if you're not someone who usually plays with Nissa Who Shakes the World, like maybe you're more of a mono red player, and more than playing with her, you're comfortable playing against her, like you know how to kill her, or you know, when she comes down but it's too late because you can just kill the opponent kind of thing. If that's where you're comfortable, then I highly recommend just looking at mono red lists that are doing well and just playing mono red. That's a wonderful strategy, and there's nothing wrong with it, right? This is the Fire Artisan channel. We support mono red players. We believe in that strategy. It's wonderful stuff. And it's really important to keep a check, honestly, on decks like this one right here. It's very easy for us, as you can imagine, to get run over by mono red because we're playing with no board clearing. And frankly, one of the reasons I'm choosing this deck is because, one, the strength of 3 main copies of Aether Gust against a deck like mono red, and number 2, I just haven't played that many mono red decks on my way up the ranks. If I were playing mono red every other time I stepped into the queue, then I think I would just choose a different deck. All right, so yeah, so let's jump in the queue. I'll show you what I'm playing in the sideboard. Oh, that actually reminds me. Here's tip number 3. I don't have these in any order. I'm just going to say them as they come to me. But regarding sideboarding and whether you should play best of 1s or best of 3s in trying to rank up. So I would say it depends on a couple of things. It depends on the strategy that you it depends on the strategy you're playing. Like obviously, if you're playing something like mono white aggro, just really low curve, really straightforward deck where you're just dumping your hand onto the battlefield, and especially if you don't feel super comfortable sideboarding with that deck, just play best of 1s all day. That's great. That's kind of, aggressive decks are obviously very well suited to best of 1s. The games will be decided quickly, so you don't have to waste time on these long, you know, boring sort of Simic color mirror matches, right? You just kind of know in the first 4 or 5 turns, like, I've won this game or I've lost this game. And yeah, like obviously, you know, you queue up against mono red or a Gruul deck, like those matches are really interesting, and they can definitely go longer. But you know, in general, your matches are going to go pretty quickly. Your games are going to go quickly. So you, yeah, best of 1s would be a pretty efficient way to just rank up quickly. On the other hand, I like to play best of 3s. I just find that I'm never sort of consistently successful with Magic unless I'm playing best of 3s. If I'm playing with a deck that I feel like I understand, I just tend to get really comfortable with sideboarding so that it just becomes a second nature. And so I feel like it's a strength for me to be able to sideboard in general against my opponents. Not like they won't know how to sideboard, obviously, because everyone's pretty experienced in Platinum, Diamond, Mythic, and beyond. But I definitely don't feel like it gives me a disadvantage to be able to sideboard. I like that flexibility, and I sort of want to play more. I don't like the sort of chancy elements that best of 1s can have. If I'm playing really any deck, then I want to be able to sideboard. I want to have all the time in the world to try to figure out how to beat the opponent. I want to play 3 games against them. And more importantly, I want to make them beat me in 2 games of Magic, as opposed to just sort of breeze through 1 where I just have a bad draw. So that's kind of my logic. But if you're not comfortable in best of 3s, then definitely stick with best of 1s. Don't feel like you have to do best of 3 if that's not where you feel like you're going to shine. So regarding this sideboard, it's yeah, it's really interesting. I've got an Arboreal Grazer to bring in. I mostly bring that in against the creature matchups, just because it's a great blocker and it helps you kind of stay ahead on tempo. Aether Gust should be pretty obvious. Any deck that's playing with a lot of red and green spells tends to be hurt a lot by Aether Gust. Disdainful Stroke, you just kind of read the text on the card to see when it would be good to bring in. Tends to be really strong against opponents who are just trying to land a bunch of really powerful spells, right? It's a great answer to planeswalkers, but it could also be a great answer to some big gruel creatures if you feel like that's the best way to deal with them. So negates, bringing these in against, you know, decks like Azorius Control, other ramp decks. Wilt has been interesting. Kind of just bring this in if you feel like you can lose to artifacts or enchantments. I mean, obviously, you want to bring this in against a deck like Temur Reclamation. You want to bring this in. Honestly, it doesn't hurt to bring in 1 or 2 copies of this against mono red. Oftentimes, the way they can beat you is by just Ember Cleaving. But that said, you also are going to have 4 copies of Aether Gust against mono red, so that's also an answer to Ember Cleave. Brazen Borrower tends to be really strong against the creature decks. Petty Theft is usually a great tempo play. You can usually really disrupt whatever the opponent is doing. Mystical Dispute, again, more counter magic. Nightpack Ambusher. Usually after sideboarding, I lower the curve of this deck and bring in Nightpack Ambushers to be a little bit more Simic flashy after sideboarding. And Shifting Ceratops, pretty straightforward. Bring it in against blue decks, especially Azorius decks, where they just won't have that many answers to this card. Yes, Elspeth Conquers Death is an answer, but we also bring in some counter magic against Azorius Control, so they can't always land their 5 mana answer to a 4 mana card. So that's the logic behind Shifting Ceratops. So we'll jump in the queue here. So another thing I'm thinking of right now is to just really, if you're really focused on ranking up, you just want to take it slow. One sort of interesting, it's not a problem in the community, obviously. It's I guess it's just a feature of the community, of the Magic community, where people feel like the more quickly you play, like the better you are at Magic. And now, obviously, wow. Yeah, so I think we're going to keep this hand. Now, obviously, okay, wait, let me let me make this move, and then I'll say what I was saying there. So don't want that. So we're just scrying for another land. Most important thing with this deck is to hit your early land drops. So that's what we're doing right here. I would love to be able to cultivate next turn. Oh, this is perfect. So, you know, against any deck that's playing blue, you want to play around Mystical Dispute to the extent that you can. In this case, I feel perfectly comfortable tapping out. There's nothing scary they can do on the second turn, and they can't Mystical Dispute our green spell here. So that's my logic in just slamming Cultivate, in case you're wondering if there are better options. So, oh yeah, I was saying, you know what, let me shut. Yeah. Oh. Okay, they just missed a couple of land drops. All right, I'm going to shut the windows really quickly. There's some very loud landscaping going on outside. I will be right back. Okay, sorry about that, folks. Okay, so we played a deck that played an island and then conceded. Wow, I wish I had a better look at their graveyard there. All right, we know they're playing blue, so Mystical Dispute is good. Don't know if Aether Gust is good. Yeah, they saw a decent amount of our deck, which I don't love. I think I'm going to go, let's see. So, no, we're on the draw, so I don't want to take out too many of my big threats. I think I'm going to go down down on Nissa a little bit and bring in the ambushers. Maybe we'll do 2 gusts, 1 negate. Yeah. Like I said, we didn't see very much of their deck, so I won't say I'm very confident with that sideboarding, but we did just get a game for free, so that's pretty exciting. But yeah, okay, so I was talking about, yeah, this hand looks pretty good. The speed of play. You want to take it nice and slow. You know, if you're really trying to, don't want another land, so I'm gonna bottom that. If you're really trying to just rank up, just take it nice and slow. There's no reason to rush. You just want to make sure you're really thinking about all the moves you're making, even stuff that seems pretty insignificant. Sometimes you just, you know, if you just play the wrong land, it can really mess up your whole strategy. So in this case, they're just going to have access to 4 lands, so I do feel comfortable just tapping out. Yeah, well, now I'm thinking, how likely is it that they're just going to try to slam like Teferi? I think I will put this in untapped. It just threaten a counterspell. But yeah, no, take your time on every move you make. It's just going to make it much more likely for you to be successful if you do that. Mystical Dispute is a really great draw. I think we'll go for Uro here. We just want to keep the ramp going. Oh. Okay, this is... I did not expect this. I thought this was more Simic Ramp than Simic Flash. I don't think I want to let this happen, especially since I have another Uro in hand. So I think I'm going to go ahead and dispute this. And get another land down with Uro here. I kind of like just leaving the Fabled Passage here. It honestly feels more threatening. And this way it'll give me priority kind of every step of the way, so they might think I actually do have Mystical Dispute. Didn't seem like they were likely to play anything on their turn anyway. Alright, so we can make a big shark, or we can just play another Uro. I think I like just making a shark this turn. My opponent still hasn't done a lot of anything here. Alright, so we can make a 4 shark by my count. I mean, another tip I'll give for ranking up is to just play pretty conservatively. If if it's turn, like if you're playing with this deck and it's turn 5, don't just slam the Nissa. And like, be aware of what you're doing. Like right now, going into this attack, like I'm aware that the best they could make if they have a Shark Typhoon is like a 3/3, right? Now it's not like I wouldn't attack if there was a possibility of them making a 5/5 Shark here. I probably still would attack, but it just helps to be aware, of what your opponent could do. Kind of like Blast Zone. I think I like playing another Uro here. We'll see if this one gets erasured too. That would kind of stink, because I don't really have an answer to another one of those cards. I don't think there's a real reason not to just put that in tapped. Ooh, Nightpack Ambusher. So I could Aether Gust this now, or I could let it land and then kind of do it on their end step. I don't think I want to let them counter that, because right now... No, yeah, because right now they could Mystical Dispute my Aether Gust. This is kind of interesting, actually. I don't like the idea. I try not to play into Mystical Dispute. I think what I'd rather do is let this land and make them spend mana on their turn. I think I'm going to take 4. That's fine. I'd rather them pass through their turn. Yeah. Now we'll play it. And this way, if they counter it or they Mystical Dispute this, even though I won't be able to answer it, they're not going to... oh, well, rewind is pretty annoying, actually. They're not going to be able to make a token here. They did cast a spell on their turn, so... Alrighty. So is it Uro or Hydroid Krasis? Kind of like Hydroid Krasis here. See if my opponent's going to do anything about this shark. Kind of like attacking first, so that if they want to do anything, they just have to do it now. All right. I think I feel better casting this Hydroid Krasis. So it's Hydroid Krasis for 6, or it's Uro, which might just get countered. I kind of like Hydroid Krasis here. And I think I'm going to cast it for 6 instead of 7. This is kind of where... this is another tip in ranking up. You see this? I'm threatening a Mystical Dispute here. Okay. So they are going to counter the creature half, but we are going to be able to draw a bunch of cards here. So this is okay. They're going for the tempo game here. All right. All right, well, we can do a pretty powerful thing here in Uro backed by Mystical Dispute. I do kind of like that. Their counterspells have been pretty expensive. I mean, alternatively, we could be more conservative, just play an Uro, ramp some more, play Cultivate. It's the kind of thing where if we play Uro here, we kind of just win on the spot. Let's see. So we could play Uro, pass, and then put 2 counters on Blast Zone, try to work toward 4. That doesn't feel that great, because then they create another token, draw another card. I think I'm going to go for the Uro here. I think Uro backed by Mystical Dispute is about as strong of a position as I'm going to be in for this game. Now, if they have a Rewind and a Mystical Dispute, yeah, that's big. That's big. That's big. I don't think there's any reason to play the Triome. Oh man, they also have the Petty Theft? Jesus. Alright. Alright. Well, that was kind of the worst case scenario of the Uro decision. This is a tough matchup for us. Alrighty. So, I think it pretty much has to be Uro here. We're starting to look really dead. Kind of too late for the Blast Zone play, because we're just dead on the next attack. They can flash out a Brazen Borrower. Hopefully Brazen Borrower is the best they can do at this point, though. All right, thankfully they don't have another counter spell. Well, not one they decided to play anyway. All right, so where do we go from here? So, I mean, I would like... So how does this next attack look? Oh, we're dead. Yeah, we're dead. We need... Because they just have 9 power. Okay. So in that case, I think we just have to see if we can find Mystical Dispute. We'll see if they flash it in. They're going to go for it. So we need to respond. And try to find anything that's going to keep us alive here. So playing this land, so we're going to have another shot at Mystical Dispute. But we also have negates in the deck. If we negate this and take 2 damage, then we do survive. So I actually kind of like playing this untapped. All right, so one more shot to stay alive here. All right, they did it. I think they have it here. Oh, man. Oh, they had lethal damage there. I don't think I miscounted. They had lethal damage. Okay, so how do we win this game now? We definitely don't win by doing nothing and passing. I think what I want to do is attack with this Uro and see what we draw. All right, that's going through. So this is obviously desperation mode here, but it's just our best chance of survival to just keep drawing cards. They're going to Mystical Dispute. I think I just have to pay for that. Am I doing anything with Blast Zones? No. I'm just trying to think if we get Nissa, what land... I think I'll tap the castle. We'll keep the untapped one. Put that land down. Okay, now I think it's well and truly over. So put the Grazer down. Put the Temple down. Mystical Dispute, not good enough. Okay, so block, 3, 6, 9. Oh, you know what? We are still alive. Do you make this block? No. Okay. All right. Well, that was a mistake on my part. I should have scried that draw, because now it's just over. Well, no, I get another attack with Uro, but otherwise it's over. All right. So, am I missing anything? No, that should do it. Yeah, that should do it. Yeah, I think I was right maybe 3 or 4 turns ago, when I said they had a lethal attack. I think they missed a lethal attack. All right, we're definitely going to play Shifting Ceratops. Definitely going to go 1 down on Ugin. We're on the play now, so we don't need as many expensive cards. Going to go 1 down on Shark Typhoon. How good is Aether Gust? Aether Gust is great. Definitely want all 4. Mystical Dispute is great. This is a really tough matchup. I guess I sort of want to, well, Hydroid Krasis is good against decks like this, actually. I guess I just want to go down on cards that are pretty easy for them to just counter. Maybe we'll go 1 down on Mystical Dispute. Grazer seems good being on the play. I think we'll keep that. Got two to cut here. Honestly, I think you do just cut the Ugin here. Try to win the tempo game. Do I cut another Cultivate? That seems a little painful. Maybe I'll cut a copy of Aether Gust. No, Aether Gust is so strong. No, Shark Typhoon's pretty good. Yeah, this has been a really tough matchup to sideboard. All right, well, this one's for all the marbles here. Wow, I feel bad. I almost feel bad for cutting so many copies of Cultivate because it's obviously just great here. So we have everything we want in the early stages, just ramp, ramp, ramp. We're going to be able to cast a turn 2 Cultivate, which is just great. Looks like maybe they're thinking about their hand a little bit. Here's another tip for ranking up. I just thought of it here. I just thought of it now. Don't concede too early. It's you know, it's one thing to have clearly lost and just know there's no card you can draw or no sort of future board state that would be like a win for you. But you know, a lot of people just kind of snap concede if they make a mistake or if they do something that's kind of embarrassing, or if the opponent just makes such a powerful play like they land an Ugin the Spirit Dragon and you're so sure you can't come back. Now, obviously, there are some even professional players who concede relatively early and quickly, but that doesn't necessarily mean you should unless you're one of them. Now, obviously, like Andrea Mengucci, right? He's one player who's famous for sort of conceding right when he thinks the game is lost and not really sticking it out for another 3 turns. Now, Andrea Mengucci is just absolutely one of the best players in the world. So he, more than most of us, just recognizes when he can't come back, when he cannot come back, and will just concede. But it can be a dangerous habit, especially if you're not Andrea Mengucci, because if you're used to just conceding when things are going really badly for you, then you might actually concede 1 or 2 games here and there where, you know, you actually could have won with the right draw, even if it was kind of a miraculous draw, right? Or, you know, if your opponent makes a mistake. Another thing to recognize in terms of early concessions is that we are playing Arena Online. So we're in a situation right now where it's not clear to me that my opponent's internet is working. So like, imagine last game had just gone so badly, or even this game was going so badly that it was totally demoralizing for me, right? Like, they counter my Nis on turn 5, or I just make some embarrassing mistakes and they're just countering all my key cards and I feel like they've got an ambusher down. Sometimes this can just happen where their internet fails. And, you know, if they don't play anything here, then I'm obviously in a position to just win this game having done nothing. So be aware that sort of crazy things can happen, even if you're so far behind that you know you can't win. Sometimes it can pay to stick it out. And that's a way to just up your win percentage that much more, is just refusing to concede until it's actually over. That said, you know, don't feel like you have to torture yourself for an extra half an hour if it doesn't look great. All right, well, I'm sorry that was a little bit anticlimactic. My opponent, I think they just lost their internet connection, obviously, which is a shame. I hate when that happens. It does happen to me a lot. So another tip for ranking up is to make sure your internet is working. Restart your router every once in a while. Maybe just use a wired connection. That's probably the safest way to go. Make sure you've been paying your internet bill. Yeah, so I'm trying to think of any other tips I might have. I mean, in my case, the advice would be to get a little bit lucky here. But I would also just say, like, maybe this is the last thing I'll say about it. Ranking up is great. Like, getting into Mythic is great. It's exciting. It's fun. But it shouldn't really be the point of your journey on Arena, right? Just try to focus on the matches. Just try to enjoy the decks. Try to have fun. Getting into Mythic isn't proof that you're a great player. It's not proof that, you know, you're better than everyone else who's not in Mythic. And it's also not proof that you're as good as, you know, some of these really just strong players out there. There could very well be a player who's just in silver or gold or whatever, and they just don't play that much. But if they were to, you know, if they were to play you in Mythic or one in Mythic, they would do really well because they're just a great player. So it's definitely not all about rank. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope at least some of my advice has been helpful, and I hope that you can be as successful as you want to be in ranking up, but you also just kind of enjoy the ride and you just enjoy every game as it comes, the wins, the losses. There's something to be learned from every result. So again, thank you so much for joining me. Remember to subscribe if you like my channel, and I will see you next time. Yeah. Have a good one.